a feeling you're looking for me, Henry.
Your father sent me.
So I can tell you how to get to our fortress. A task for the lowest lackey. Well, you don't need to answer that.
Right, yeah. That's exactly what...
What are you staring at? Do you think I was born yet? So, it leads to the cellars. But the outside entrance is hidden underground, and you can find the exact place.
Is it in a cave hidden behind a wall?
Well, no. Listen, nearby Malashov is a stud farm managed by Hashtal. We had a wayside shrine set up at the crossroads, but...
A wayside shrine? How do you mean?
Never mind. It's a big white column. From the shrine, you should be able to see a group. Beyond them are the remains of an old chapel. You have to find it, and then there's a kind of...
If it's still standing.
I hope so too. Anyway, it should direct... And now pay attention. Somewhere in those ruins is a stone cross. If you go the way the cross is pointing, you'll find another one. That should lead you to a small clearing, marked by a cross. You dig there.
Shit, that's damn complicated.
Of course it is. After all, you don't want any old idiot to find...
True enough.
Maybe in a while. Getting into the castle is the easy part. Don't forget...
You're right. Horses will be needed.
That's exactly what I was thinking. Fortunately, stop off at the stud farm I told you about, and ask...
Are you serious? I just
Exactly. Please tell Hashtal that Papa is still paying for masses for his... And even if he's not too keen...
You got it well figured out.
You've done plenty to help, and now it's our turn. You know, you might not be aware of it. Papa would never admit it. But alone, we wouldn't... You've earned the right to the gratitude, and...
Would you like to come with me?
Would you seriously want me there? What if something were to go wrong?
Well, you wouldn't be a burden to me. Quite the opposite.
Thank you. But I can't go nevertheless. That's why I would like to ask, but you mustn't breathe a word of it to any...
I'm listening.
I wanted to ask you, since you're going to be
And what might that be?
a book. It has great value to me, but if you're going there now...
And what book is this?
It's hard to explain to someone uninitiated.
What do you mean, uninitiated?
Really? Mea culpa. So if you do find the book...
Well, yeah. That's the way it goes with books.
In that case, I'm not going to make it easy for you.
Fear not, my lady. I'll gladly tear the entire fortress apart to...
Restraint, valiant knight. I value your determination, but this way would give yourself away. Find it nice and quietly.
Your wish is my...
It shouldn't be hard. The book is bound in scarlet leather and inlaid with gold. And take this.
Thank you.
It is quite possible you won't get back to Malashov again. So don't forget about me. And Henry...
Fancy prose is this? Know that the future is not fixed or stable.
How did you become a knight?
I paid for it. When Malashov was vacated, I bought that fortress. Then it was entered into the land register as my property. There were still some legal requirements, but personally, I'm pleased that in the history of...
You can simply buy a title.
Definitely not just like that. It's not at all such an unusual In Prague, for example, there used to be the Rocketsanberger family, and it may also happen that some commoner lends the king, and the king doesn't have the coin to pay back the debt. Nevertheless, the old nobility, such as... and they despise us for it. But I think in a few generations, it will be established among the nobility. I pray that my house will endure.
Well... Enjoy your well-deserved spurs. What's the political situation in the city?
All in all, miserable. Bailiff Plymel is also on Sigismund's side, and I tested the waters among the councillors.
Who sits on the city council?
Wenceslas Forsucher, Jerome Naz, They're from the old and rich burgher. Martin tried to negotiate some support from them, but they either have their interests connected with or they just don't want to commit themselves.
But they don't sit alone on the count.
They don't. Then there are the representatives. Compared to the old houses, the guildmaster's only quite... So they probably won't risk. But you're right that we might find support among... The thing is, we're not yet in a position to...
And what about Vavak?
He does. And they'll do what he tells them. Except Vavak is a slimy bastard who'll sink us as soon as he gets... Because as soon as he learns something he could exchange for a pardon from Sigismund...
Thank you for filling me in on the...
Well, there wasn't much...
And what about the church? You can see Sedlet's monastery from the city.
He does. And his relationship with the city... First of all, the abbot is burning through his property. And who do you think is buying them up? Then there's a long-standing dispute over the manning of some churches, which goes back as far as I can remember.
Well, then how about promising the abbot support and getting him on our side? Promises cost nothing, right?
Ha ha! I see you're no newcomer to politics. But we hesitated with the abbot, and he decided to throw in his lot with Sigismund. In fact, he's given him accommodation, and is wining and dining him.
It's not like he had a lot.
Oh, he did. A lot is permitted by the law of the church, even refusing act.
Sigismund has a whole army behind.
Do you think Sigismund would attack? All he'd get from us would be a pile of old bones. No, Sigismund doesn't need the abbot. But the abbot needs...
I'm glad we took care of Vavak without... They outnumbered us, and they had heavy armor. I'm not really sure.
If the worst came to the worst, we'd have had to try. But otherwise, I agree with you. We saved the lives of... After all, I've already fought my hardest battle.
If I may be so bold, can I ask...
Not long ago, when Sigismund's army besieged Cutton. Back then, I saw things differently than I do today. I feared, and rightly so, that Sigismund... But I was in the minority. And even my son Vensa, we quarreled a lot over... In the end, he told me that even though he wanted to prove the Knights of Malashov didn't wear spurs just for show, and that we'd earned the armored arm in our crest. When an opportunity arose to strike against the enemy...
What happened next?
More importantly, some French knight appeared from God knows. He said he was a renowned military leader and a personal friend, and that it was his sacred duty. I no longer know why or how. One of the first things he did was attack the huge trebuchets. It seemed they were poorly defended, and when the Frenchman was putting together a cavalry unit... Only it was a trap, the oldest and most primitive trick. And our renown, of course, Sigismund, or whoever was in command, he had his own cavalry. When I learned where Vensa had gone, I gathered my men. But when we arrived, it was all over. And there was nothing left for us, so you heard it. My hardest battle was... But I won't make the same. It won't bring Vensa back to me. But our estates, our honor. God be with you.
Oh, and about that secret... How did you find that secret passageway back then?
I'm glad you ask, because it's a really interesting... It all started when I was 12. One morning, I found a bat nailed to the Malashov gate.
Not really. Bats are creatures of the night. They flit around while good Christians are asleep, often carrying out the will of witches, or even but a bat nailed up actually repels all evil.
Well now, I have to admire your knowledge. That's exactly what the chambermaid... The thing that I was most interested in was where they got that bat. You know, I was awfully inquisitive. Embroidery wasn't exactly my passion, and Papa forbade me from riding out into the woods.
Aye, Not that I ever embroidered, but Pa...
Parents have no understanding. But back to the bats. I found out from the guards that they caught the poor creatures somewhere in the cellars. I followed them for a while, and I noticed that in one corner they simply I was full of curiosity, and I talked Papa into having the wall demolished. I remember there was even a priest there at the time, but as you probably guessed, there was nothing behind the wall.
My word, you're right. You're really sharp. And hard-headed when you latch on to...
Hard-headed? I'd rather say...
Why did your people mark the passage from outside?
Papa came up with that. He said one never knows. Why do you ask anyway? Would you rather search?
No. It's really smart. Have you ever used the passage?
No, it's never been needed. Thank God. But everything is ready there. That ought to give us enough time.
Sorry, I've got a bit lost in all...
I've told you already, haven't I? At the crossroads near Hushtal's stud farm is a wayside shrine. Nearby is a group of boulders by the road. Behind them, you'll find another chapel, an old one. When you look through the gap in it, you'll see ruins. Go there and look for a stone cross. Go in the direction that the top of the cross is... Again, carry on the way that the cross is pointing, and you should come to a small clearing, where there's a...
Sure.
And don't forget to take a torch.